an African-American male artist famed for a moving song about betrayal, was tragically murdered by his spouse and her accomplice. The death remained concealed for 4 years. This isn't fiction. It's a real event. Astonishingly, this is just one of 20 such heartbreaking cases involving Black celebrities killed by their partners. This video unveils some of the most disturbing deaths in the annals of Black music. These iconic figures didn't perish in accidents. They didn't succumb to age. Their lives were violently ended by those who professed undying love. Prepare to learn the complete, unvarnished truth. 17. Edward Kendricks. A romance concluding in harshness. Edward Kendricks, the high, gentle yet captivating voice of The Temptations, once charmed audiences globally with Just My Imagination. He embodied tender love songs, a 1960s and 70s American soul icon. Yet privately, his story turned into a fading romance culminating in an understated, tragic demise few openly discussed. In January 1992, while readying for a Temptations reunion, Eddie unexpectedly hemoptysized backstage. Associates advised immediate medical care. However, he went home where his spouse, Patricia, grappled with a recently found letter. It was a love letter Eddie penned to a young female artist he mentored at the studio. Conflict ignited. Family members recounted Patricia actively hindering Eddie's treatment. She supposedly deterred follow-up visits and even destroyed his medical records, stating, "Don't overreact." By the time Edward received his lung cancer diagnosis, it was terminal. On October 5th, 1992, he passed away in Birmingham. A soul that once breathed life into the gentlest fantasies concluded in a harsh truth where love failed to rescue him, instead robbing him of his last hope. 16. Otis Redding. Unraveling the mystery of his final flight. The iconic American soul singer Otis Redding, whose voice resonated deeply with Black Americans, perished tragically at only 26 years old, at the zenith of his musical career. On 12/10/1967, the small aircraft transporting him and the Bar-Kays crashed into Wisconsin's Lake Monona amidst dense fog. The accident claimed 7 lives, including Otis's. While officially labeled an accident, those closest to him offered a contrasting narrative. Prior to the flight, Otis engaged in a heated dispute with his wife, Zelma Redding, concerning his excessive work, familial neglect, and allegations of extramarital affairs. Accounts suggest he wept following his last conversation with Zelma, yet still boarded the plane despite the inclement weather, as if seeking refuge from his personal turmoil. The precise events remain unknown, but his final recording, Dock of the Bay, now resonates with an eerie prescience. A solitary figure by the water's edge, grappling with an uncertain future, then fading into silence. Otis's death transcended a mere plane crash. It may have encapsulated a soul burdened by fractured love, overwhelming responsibilities, and unresolved emotional wounds. 15. Donny Hathaway. A tragic end to an unrequited love. His voice, one of the most melancholic in American soul music, often portrayed love as a life-saving force. Ironically, it was love that ultimately led to his demise, a fall from which no song could rescue him. On the night of 1/13/1979, a frigid New York foreshadowed the tragedy to come. Hours earlier, he'd been at the Essex House Hotel, 15th floor, alone. He'd been recording with Roberta Flack, his famed duet partner, a woman who left him in a constant state of yearning and fear. The unreleased tracks from that session possessed a unique energy, exquisite, captivating, yet hauntingly reminiscent of a final farewell. Donny had a wife and children, yet his marriage had crumbled silently under the weight of his paranoia. Envy, anger, and distrust plagued him, even towards his loved ones. Roberta was his sole confidant, yet their connection remained undefined, unspoken, and unresolved. That evening, after Roberta departed, Donnie remained alone. His thoughts, his final note, all remain unknown. We only know that on the 15th floor, the wind blew open the window and Donnie didn't close it. His body was found near midnight, lifeless on the hotel ledge. There was no struggle, no final words, only a silence that reverberated throughout the music world. Officially ruled a suicide, those who knew him understood it as the breaking point of a soul weary from unreturned love. 14. The soulful, captivating vocalist Phyllis Hyman, a prominent figure in American soul and jazz, is remembered for her ability to evoke profound emotion through ballads such as Living All Alone and You Know How to Love Me. However, this dazzling persona masked deep loneliness and unrequited love, which ultimately led to her demise. In 1978, she married Larry Alexander, whom she considered her refuge amidst life's turmoil. He was not only her spouse, but also her musical collaborator, understanding her implicitly. Yet, their union ended a few years later, reportedly due to Larry's relationship with a young female singer he managed, a singer Phyllis herself had introduced. This betrayal, though unspoken, shattered the already fragile trust within her. Following the divorce, Phyllis resided alone in a luxurious New York apartment, maintaining a public image of strength, performing, smiling, and consistently wearing her signature bold red lipstick despite her internal struggles. Confidants revealed her escalating insomnia, aversion to discussing love, and perpetually weary appearance. Paradoxically, her fame intensified her solitude. She poignantly penned in her diary, "People adore my voice, but nobody loves me." On June 30th, 1995, hours before her 46th birthday performance, Phyllis ingested a lethal dose of sleeping medication, leaving a suicide note. This note simply stated, "I'm weary. The individuals I cherish. You know who you are." These few words encapsulate the burden of a woman who loved deeply, trusted implicitly, and ultimately succumbed to invisible wounds. Phyllis's passing, though understated, serves as a stark reminder of the silent suffering often concealed beneath a celebrated public image. 13. The flamboyant funk musician Rick James, known for his hit Super Freak, captivated audiences with his energetic music and chaotic personal life. His existence, however, was a tumultuous blend of passionate love and self-destructive behavior. During the 1980s and 90s, James's tumultuous relationship with Tanya Hijazi, a captivating and cunning woman, became a significant factor in his downfall. Their intensely passionate romance was marred by frequent conflicts, jealousy, and violence. Intimate acquaintances revealed that following disputes with Hijazi, James would frequently resort to drugs, cocaine, alcohol, and prescription medications, as a means to cope. In 1993, their involvement in the kidnapping and torture of another woman resulted in their arrests, drastically tarnishing James's public persona. Even after his release from incarceration, he struggled to overcome the physical and emotional trauma. On August 6, 2004, heart failure claimed James's life. Many believed his heart was already worn out, not just by substance abuse, but also by the damaging relationship that plunged him into despair. While Super Freak remains an iconic and energetic anthem, the life of its creator concluded on a tragically somber note. 12. The renowned R&B vocalist Barry White passed away on 07/04/2003 from kidney failure and hypertension complications. His death, however, was shrouded in whispers of discord with his wife, Catherine White. Speculation arose concerning Catherine's alleged neglect of his diet and medication, despite awareness of his critical condition. Barry's decline, therefore, was marked not by overt aggression, but by a subtle withdrawal of care. Ironically, the voice celebrated for passionate love succumbed to the apathetic detachment of his wife, the very source of his inspiration. 11. Curtis Mayfield's betrayal by his closest companion. Curtis Mayfield, an icon of American soul music, crafted songs that ignited hope in a generation. However, his later years weren't illuminated by spotlights, but darkened by profound physical and emotional suffering. His passing wasn't caused by gunfire or violence. Instead, numerous accounts suggest his death stemmed from a subtle betrayal by his most intimate partner, the person who pledged lifelong devotion. Following a devastating 1990 accident that left him quadriplegic, Curtis fiercely clung to music as his final lifeline. He recorded music lying on his side, composing amidst excruciating pain. He valiantly fought to maintain hope. Yet concurrently, his marriage disintegrated. His wife, his companion during his most successful years, allegedly concealed financial resources, limited his contact with friends, and progressively distanced herself. Some family members even alleged she demanded portions of his royalties and reduced his care during his most vulnerable state. In 1999, Curtis succumbed to complications from diabetes. However, those nearest to him maintain he surrendered to despair long beforehand, not due to his illness, but because of the abandonment inflicted by his most trusted individual. 10. James Brown, a self-proclaimed wife's treacherous scheme. The iconic godfather of soul, James Brown, commanded global attention with his electrifying vocals and unparalleled dance style. However, on 25th of December 2006, his demise occurred not during a performance, but within the sterile confines of an Atlanta hospital. Contrary to initial reports of pneumonia, his passing was a somber event, marked by the absence of a loved one at his side. Tommy Ray Heine, self-proclaimed legal spouse, shared years alongside Brown, navigating a complex relationship fraught with affection, discord, financial disagreements, allegations of abuse, and deep-seated distrust. Initially, medical professionals reported a stable condition. Yet a sudden, unexpected deterioration followed. A critical lack of timely intervention was evident. He left without a final word. A devastating hypothesis arose. Did resentment, grief, or long-standing conflicts motivate Tommy's alleged inaction during his critical moment of need? James Brown, the embodiment of funk, met a quiet, somber end. A poignant conclusion, mirroring a love story warped into fatal apathy. 9. Lee Morgan, a gunshot within a jealous rage. A dazzling hard bop jazz virtuoso, Lee Morgan illuminated the 1960s with his captivating trumpet and defiant existence. Yet, on the tragic night of February 19, 1972 at the Slug Saloon in Manhattan, his music was abruptly ended by a single gunshot. The perpetrator was Helen Moore, a woman who had previously rescued him from substance abuse, resided with him as his spouse, and championed him both personally and professionally. However, Helen's devotion also became her undoing as Morgan started to distance himself, showing coldness, and was allegedly involved with another woman. In a tempest of anguish and anger, Helen entered the establishment carrying the pain of a forsaken heart. Upon Morgan rejecting her, she reacted and fired her weapon. Death arrived sooner than the emergency vehicle, which was stuck in the snow. It marked not only the demise of a musician, but the most sorrowful composition ever composed by unrequited affection. 8. Tammy Terrell, a blossom cut short. Born in 1945, she was Motown's captivating inspiration, possessing soulful eyes and a honeyed voice that enriched memorable collaborations alongside Marvin Gaye. Yet, beneath the romantic melodies lay a brief, agonizing existence and a harsh romance that inflicted an enduring injury, possibly contributing to her demise. At 17, Tammy initiated a relationship with James Brown, the soul music icon, 12 years her elder. What initially appeared as a radiant initial romance swiftly deteriorated into a harrowing ordeal. Relatives recounted that Brown frequently assaulted her, on one occasion rendering her unconscious behind the stage. However, that was not the most egregious event. Subsequently, Tammy fell for David Ruffin, the Temptations' lead vocalist. He offered her a dazzling engagement ring, only for her to uncover weeks later his concealed spouse and offspring. a head wound sustained when Ruffin hurled a motorcycle helmet at her, is widely believed to have hastened the progression of her brain tumor. In 1967, Tammy suffered a collapse on stage during a performance with Marvin Gaye. 3 years later, at 24, she passed away, leaving behind an incomplete career and a spirit that remained unfulfilled. The loss of Motown's muse resembled a flower prematurely severed before reaching its full potential. 7. The charge nobody voiced: Wilson Pickett. A soul legend famed for his fiery In the Midnight Hour performances met a tragic end few anticipated. He died at his Reston, Virginia home on January 19, 2006, officially from a heart attack. However, preceding events sparked troubling questions. Loved ones remembered Pickett's declining health in his final months, marked by insomnia and increasing irritability. His medication regimen had been altered unbeknownst to them. His bloodstream held an unexpectedly large quantity of heart medication. His refrigerator contained opened alcohol bottles, and his last drink showed traces of a mild stimulant. This evidence focused suspicion on Bonnie, his partner, the sole other occupant that night. Years of marital discord and infidelity rumors supposedly drove Bonnie to desperation. Thus, when Pickett's heart failed, only ambiguous hints remained, resembling unspoken accusations. 6. Ray Charles. A final act of vengeance by his spouse. Ray Charles, the sightless musician whose eyes couldn't see, yet whose spirit deeply understood the American soul. He transformed suffering into harmonious melodies, solitude into romantic ballads, and Georgia on My Mind into a timeless musical masterpiece. However, in the concluding years of his life, the man who brightened countless lives faded away amid the chilling detachment of the woman who pledged lifelong companionship. On June 10, 2004, at his Beverly Hills residence, Ray Charles passed away due to liver complications. Yet, the narrative surrounding his death transcends simple natural causes. His wife, Della Beatrice Howard, had shared decades with a man who was both a musical prodigy and a philanderer, frequently absent from home, surrounded by acclaim and the adoration of other women. Confidential sources revealed that Della progressively withdrew from his care, allowing Ray to manage his health independently. The alcohol, the medications, the silent pain left unmonitored. The truly shocking revelation emerged afterward. He hadn't attended a single treatment appointment during the final 3 months of his existence. His personal chauffeur attested that each attempt to transport Ray to the hospital was thwarted by Della, the woman Ray implicitly trusted, who would declare, "He's weary. Perhaps tomorrow." A tomorrow that never arrived. Ray's loved ones claim Della once stated, "Let him live as he chooses. Whatever transpires, transpires." They say love is the most exquisite composition. But occasionally, when even a single beat of care is missing, it transforms into a fractured tune, mirroring Ray Charles's solitary, weary, and silent departure in the very home constructed from the notes of affection. 5. Jimi Hendrix, a musical genius felled by love and barbiturates. A pivotal figure in 1960s rock, Hendrix, the man who ignited the guitar with the fire of his soul, remains an irreplaceable legend. Yet this dazzling public persona masked a turbulent personal life, a chaotic blend of love, fame, and profound solitude. On the morning of 9/18/1970, Jimmy was discovered lifeless in London's Samarand Hotel, recumbent on his bed, his mouth and airway obstructed by vomit, likely resulting from a lethal combination of sleeping pills and red wine. His girlfriend, Monica Danon, who summoned emergency services, reported he'd ingested 9 of her sleeping pills, a double dose. However, a crucial question persists. Why the delay in seeking help? Some close to Hendrix speculated a prior argument suggesting Monica might have left him unattended for several hours, either in anger or a state of panic. the circumstances surrounding Hendrix's demise remain unresolved. The tragic reality is that this musical prodigy didn't meet his end in a fiery stage performance, but rather in a love affair that gradually enveloped him in a tragic darkness. 4. The quiet demise of Sylvester, a sudden death without warning. Sylvester, the explosive voice of disco, mesmerized audiences with his fluid gender expression, a style that compelled the world to recognize his talent and celebrate his authentic life. Yet, away from the stage lights, his existence was consumed by loneliness, treachery, and a romance that proved fatal. In 1986, as disco's popularity waned, Sylvester continued performing in San Francisco's smaller venues, still adorned in glamorous makeup, maintaining a bright smile, presenting an image of well-being. However, his friends noticed a transformation. He experienced significant weight loss, a persistent cough, and struggled to complete performances. By June, he was admitted to a hospital and received an AIDS diagnosis. At the time, the disease was considered a terminal illness and carried a heavy social stigma. His heartbreaking admission caused his loved ones profound sorrow. He confided that he believed a former lover, a young dancer who had shared his home for several months, was responsible for infecting him. This man may have been aware of his own health status yet remained silent, unknowingly delivering a death sentence. Sylvester did not express anger or resentment, nor did he speak out publicly. He chose to bear his pain privately, continuing to sing and record his final compositions from his hospital bed. On December 16, 1988, he passed away at home. Surrounded by the few close friends who remained by his side until the end, although no one faced prosecution, his death lingers as a crime perpetrated through silence, selfishness, and profound apathy. Sylvester, who once sang of love with unwavering faith, was ultimately destroyed by that very love. 3. Jackie Wilson, felled by a past love and a bullet that remained. Jackie Wilson, globally recognized as Mr. Excitement, once captivated America with his potent voice, striking physique, and captivating stage spins. However, concealed behind his brilliant performances was a complex romantic life, ensnared in envious entanglements like a poised snare. On the night of 15th of February 1961, New York City was frigid and still, shortly after Valentine's Day. In an opulent Manhattan residence, Jackie had just returned from a rendezvous with his new girlfriend, model Harleen Harris. Yet, awaiting him wasn't romantic solace, but a tempest of past jealousy. Juanita Jones, his ex-lover, had secretly entered the apartment, silently waiting like a disregarded shadow. Her envy, humiliation, and heartache culminated in an uncontrollable eruption. As Jackie entered within seconds, 2 gunshots reverberated through the room. Jackie fell, his blood staining the gray carpet under Harleen's feet, while Juanita stood petrified, the firearm still in her grasp, her eyes vacant. Surgeons salvaged his life through an extensive, hours-long emergency operation. But while his body endured, his spirit might never have recovered from that night. He lost a kidney, and the remaining bullet stayed embedded near his spine, irremovable. From then on, Jackie's health deteriorated. He continued performing, smiling for his admirers, but he wasn't the vibrant Mr. Excitement of his prime. Each performance concealed the physical and emotional agony stemming from a love that remained unresolved, unhealed, and irreparably damaged. Juanita was apprehended but evaded a lengthy prison term after being judged temporarily insane. As for Jackie, the man whose music once ignited hearts, he bore that bullet until his death in 1984. An artist who gradually succumbed to a gunshot fired by a love from the past. And whenever his tunes resound, people recall the pain that remained unspoken. 2. Florence Ballard. A shadowy figure haunted her. Florence Ballard, a founding member of the Supremes, was a Motown superstar. Yet, less than a decade later, she died impoverished, embittered, and despairing at only 32. Few realize that after her 1967 dismissal from the group, amidst internal strife and Diana Ross's ascendance, Florence's life spiraled downward. She wed Thomas Chapman, a former chauffeur for the label. However, instead of providing support, he became her destructive force. Thomas seized her finances, squandering her supreme settlement. Leaving her destitute, he resorted to physical abuse, controlling her and confining her to her own house. The woman who once graced grand stages in dazzling attire was reduced to welfare applications, borrowing for her children's milk and singing in dilapidated bars for survival. Double-crossed by love and fame, Florence's last days were marked by depression, despair, and sickness. On February 22, 1976, she succumbed to a heart attack. But her heart's demise wasn't solely due to illness. It was broken long before by stolen glory, lost wealth, and a love transformed into agony. A death not just tragic, but profoundly unfair. One, Al Jackson Jr., the soul legend, was murdered in his home. Al Jackson Jr. was renowned as America's human metronome. He drummed for Booker T and the MGs and was integral to countless legendary Stax Records soul recordings. He lived a secluded life, rarely seeking media attention. His rhythm, however, profoundly impacted a generation of black artists. Despite this outward composure, his personal life was turbulent. On the night of October 1, 1975, an unusual quiet fell over Al's Memphis home. Hours later, he was found dead, shot multiple times in the back, a swift, decisive killing. His wife Barbara claimed a stranger broke in, bound her, and shot Al, yet there was no sign of forced entry. Nothing was stolen, no struggle was evident. The house was pristine, belying the violent crime scene. Suspicions arose. 3 months prior, Barbara had shot Al, though he survived. Al, valuing privacy and avoiding scandal, forgave her and didn't report the incident. He briefly moved to a hotel to escape the volatile marriage, but work commitments brought him back to the house. Adding to the shock, Al had booked a flight to London a week before his death, planning a career change. This story concludes our exploration of 17 tragic tales. These were 21 African-American musicians, 21 individuals whose careers once shone brightly, only to be extinguished by those closest to them. Spanning from Jackie Wilson to Harry Welch, encompassing enduring romantic ballads to somber conclusions, every narrative compels us to question the sincerity behind romantic music. Therefore, which account resonated most profoundly with you? Please comment and disseminate this video if you feel these realities warrant wider recognition.